Good morning, everyone. I wanted to wish you a happy new year. Hope everybody's doing great. Start their new year off the way they want. And hopefully, all your dreams for the year, all your goals will be fulfilled. Today, I wanted to take some time to discuss mental health. By now, many of you have heard of or seen the podcast, a very popular podcast, where a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, a statistician came on to talk about psychosis, namely mass formation psychosis. So I wanted to just give you a quick overview, maybe clear up a few things about what that's all about and what's been going on and how it really relates to the current situation that we're facing in the United States and around the world. Uh, so First off, what is psychosis? Psychosis is a mental disorder characterized by a disconnection of a person from reality. A person believes something that is not real, sees things that don't exist, hears things that don't exist. Um, there's many ways that it can manifest itself in a mental patient. I know a little bit about this. I've been in the field for quite some time, over a decade. In my last job especially, I saw all types of psychoses. Uh, but what I disagree with is that most experts, most psychiatrists, psychologists say that it is a result of a chemical imbalance in the brain. It could be caused by trauma. It could be caused by drugs, which is all true. Um, you could really screw yourself up, or other people can screw you up as well, causing the psychosis. But also, psychosis could be caused temporarily. Most people don't know that. Psychosis can be caused through hypnosis. And no, I'm not talking about you being one to one with a practitioner of hypnosis and them making you believe or do things that you really didn't expect or thought that you would do. Some people are much more susceptible than others. Some people are not susceptible at all to hypnosis. But the quickest way to have somebody hypnotized is through mass. Um, and to clarify, that means using fear or something unexpected, something that changes their entire perspective or their, their sense of safety. There are actually practitioners who do tours. This was very popular in Russia uh, or in the Soviet Union. My father did a lot of this. He was a psychiatrist and a medical doctor, and he was a practitioner of hypnosis too. Uh, he would travel around and do these shows on stage where he would get a bunch of people and he would hypnotize them almost instantly. And this takes fear and an unexpected event. So, what's really going on in society right now is the same the same technique on a mass scale. And the psychologist that came on the podcast that I mentioned earlier, he was talking about it, and it's called mass formation psychosis. Um, so it's basically a mass psychosis caused by fear. Just in a nutshell, that's what it is. People get entranced uh, with a lie, which is formulated to advance some kind of agenda. And there's a whole slew of examples from history. Um, take communism in the Soviet Union, where they estimate 50 million people were exterminated just so that we could have a communist state. Take um, Hitler's Germany, where millions and millions of people were killed, and the people that were in power or that were impartial felt that it was right because they believed their leaders. They were afraid. They thought that this was the only way going forward for them. Um, so people do, even those of us who are impervious to hypnosis on a one-to-one basis, are not impervious or immune to mass psychosis or mass hypnosis. That is, and like I said, this has been used many times before in history, and it is usually done. The fear is instilled to forward an agenda, usually a political agenda, so that people like Hitler, like Lenin, Stalin, um, you name the dictators, so they maintain power through fear. And it's a very powerful tool. If you don't know, um, in mass, people can do much scarier things than they can do individually. For instance, a person that never thought of committing a crime or hurting somebody physically goes to a protest and it turns violent, and then uh, mob mentality kicks in, and they do things that they wouldn't normally do, uh, and it turns into a riot, let's say. There's been recent examples of that too, if you know what I mean. Uh, but yes, a portion of the population is more susceptible than another, and those people that do fall into the trance become literally incapable of listening to opposing information or contradicting information. They believe the lie so much that they physically and mentally cannot process new information that would contradict the narrative. That is how powerful the mass psychosis or mass formation psychosis is. Uh, yeah, once you're in it, it's almost impossible to get out. Even if you see direct evidence that contradicts the lie, uh, you won't believe it. You either will not listen to it, you'll dismiss it, you would even fight against it, calling it a lie, calling that it was a fix, um, that the information is not based in reality. Find any way to discredit the person or people who brought it forth, no matter what they do, no matter how what reputation they have. It doesn't matter. Once you're in it, you're going to defend it because that becomes your reality, and you feel that any information that contradicts what you believe is actually an attack on you personally, on people like you personally. Very, very scary stuff. But such a powerful tool, it does require a few things to happen. Um, it is fueled by constant misinformation, constant quashing of contradictory information um, from all angles. So you'll see that everybody jumps in line quickly. Starts with the government, making restrictions, putting out misinformation, using mass media to fuel it, just repetitive misinformation, repetitive fear narrative, uh, just to keep just to keep the fuel going. Uh, uh, and then everybody else falls in line. Employers fall in line. Um, which is crazy because that is the only way to counter the Constitution of the United States is through employers, is through corporations. Private companies can do whatever the hell they want, and the Constitution goes out the door basically. You lose certain civil liberties working for any corporation. Uh, you cannot think for yourself. You cannot resist mandates. You become part of a machine. You cannot be an individual anymore. There are exceptions, obviously, to that, but most corporations are the same. They'll just go with the flow. Very few will resist. Very few will go against the grain. They'll just follow whatever the new trend is, whatever the government feels is appropriate at that time, or the masses at least. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these notes here. Uh, if everything that I told you sounds familiar, another way of putting it is a term called brainwashing. And once you're there, you are basically unable, and you don't have the power anymore to think for yourself. You lose your individuality. That is the power of the mob. That is the power of the mob mentality. That is the power of the masses. Uh, Once there is enough people and you're in that crowd, you think as one. There's nothing that will sway you. You become more and more powerful. There was a very uh, from my childhood, I remember a folklore, a Russian folklore. There was one story where an old father was on his deathbed, surrounded by his sons who had been um, not getting along, who had been fighting, who had been uh, fighting over his inheritance, or death threats, all that kind of stuff. So as his final task before his death, he told them a parable, uh, and told them about sticks. He said that, you see this stick? Try to break it. And each one of them took a stick and they broke it. And they're like, what are you doing? What do you mean? He says, okay, now get some sticks and put them together. Get five sons. Put them together. Each one of them tried to break it. They couldn't break it. He says, individually, you can be broken, but together, you cannot. It's the same thing with mass psychosis. Individually, people can snap out of psychosis, but together, they cannot. And they can continue in this state of psychosis for a very, very long time. And this is why every news channel, even local news channel, every other story, if not every story, is connected to the Wu flu, and all the new variants, and how dangerous it is if you do not fall in line, how dangerous it is if you do not get vaccinated, despite most people knowing that um, the jabs are not effective at all on these new variants, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Uh, so yes, you lose your individuality, you lose your ability to think for yourself. You're basically brainwashed, and any contradiction to the lie that had caused this um, is just becomes a completely different reality, something that you cannot connect with, something that you cannot consider, something that you will lash out against, even um, depending on depending on how deeply you are rooted into this new system. And this allows the government or whoever had propagated the lie to do basically whatever they want, to take as much power as they want, to profit as much as they want. Um, and the way that they do that is that once people are entranced, once people are afraid, um, once a problem becomes so big, they can offer hope. They can offer hope and present it to them, to you, and people would do anything to protect that. Even the most highly educated people. For an example, for my personal life, when this whole Wu flu thing started 2 years ago, uh, I I was concerned too. I mean, not as concerned as many people, but I was concerned too. And my coworkers and friends were very concerned too. The lockdowns came from nowhere, and people started staying at home. In my job, in my sphere, I continued going to work, luckily, um, and I worked with all types of medical people, doctors, nurses, techs, all that kind of stuff, or worked with, I should say. Uh, and as it progressed, as this whole Wu flu narrative progressed, uh, people that I respected, deeply respected, even medical doctors that I respected that know um, how necessary longitudinal studies are, that know the ins and outs of the medical industry, uh, they were actually giddy to take an experimental drug and promote it. They were giddy about it. It was shocking. It was shocking. They were like little children. Um, these some of these doctors have participated in their own drug studies, developing medications. So they knew how ridiculous it would be to have a jab developed in a few months and forced on people. They knew until it happened, and then they were giddy to take it. This is how fear works. Well, it can potentially change your entire world or perception of the world. It can change your values. Like I said earlier, a person who does not have a history of violence or a tendency for violence can become a murderer in mass if there's enough people that join them and believe the lie. Super scary, super scary. That's how Hitler got away with killing millions of Jews, and the communist dictators the same, killing millions and millions of their own people, exterminating anybody who didn't fall in line. It's happening over and over again. This is just a new tool, a new fear narrative. So disgusting. And along those lines, I just realized the minority that revolt against this new structure, this new lie, they get exterminated in one way or another, either physically in some cases, or socially. Yeah, they get completely discredited. They can lose their jobs, their livelihood. It doesn't matter if they present contradictory evidence, science-based evidence, um, because everybody is completely in the dark about it and will ignore it. So that is basically it about the mass formation psychosis. Um, Another thing I wanted to point out is even the people who develop the medications for the Wu flu, uh, if they say something that's science based, they get canceled. Have you read recently about or heard, hopefully, this was canceled, so you might not be able to find any uh, videos online, about Dr. Malone, Robert Malone, who is the developer, the inventor of the mRNA um, technology for the jabs, came out and said that there is no reason for young adults, healthy adults, and children to take the jab, that the the costs outweigh the benefits. It causes more illness than it prevents. He said this. Look it up. Look it up. Try to find it. You will not be able to find it any videos. You might find a few articles, but no videos of him talking about this. Maybe, I don't know, Rumble, maybe somewhere else. You'll be able to find it. This is completely insane. Even he gets canceled, and he developed the damn thing. Completely insane. Mass formation, that is insanity for sure. Complete disconnection from reality. But tell me what you think, um, and tell me if you need me to expand on any of these topics as well. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time.